And it's lights out. Welcome to the Pitwall, your stop for fantasy Formula One content. This is our amazing weekly podcast. I'm your host, Jeanmark, and what a race. Joining me this evening is my bro, Dominick, my father, Dr. David Kessler, and our great friend, Paola. Let's begin with your amazing participation on our Twitter at Relsick Racing. You'll see it'll say Pitwall, but I put out a poll because I wanted to know if it was that important for me to make sure I edit a really quick video right after free practice 1 and before qualifying. Normally, I get a 24-hour window to do my research and do the editing. And here it was a little bit more off the cuff, and I kicked out to you guys. I said only a couple hours. What should I do? Instead of doing a 3 statistical secrets, should I A, make a short 3-minute video, do a live stream during the practice session, or neither, just relax? 27% of you said, hey, you take it easy. 63% of you said, hey, just do a really short video. I'm so glad you guys pushed me to do it because there was some pivotal decisions that we found out about after free practice 1, and it all hinged on AWS. I really never take it into consideration what AWS says for their qualifying projections, but that proved how fast McLaren was this weekend. And one of you guys, he's on Twitter and he also commented on YouTube. He's like, when I was looking at AWS on that video, I kept doing the bruh face. I'm like, bruh. Anyways, one of the things involved with that was why I don't think you should have used your Mega Driver last race weekend. And Dad, you watched the video, you were at work, tell us the story, what all went down.
So I watched the video and I thought, man, that makes a whole lot of sense. I shouldn't Mega Drive. And I couldn't undo what I did earlier, so I stuck Mega Driving Verstappen. Had I been able to watch it, I would have put McLaren as my constructor and picked up Ricardo. But because I watched it and didn't have access to my team, I was stuck with what I got, which was not so hot, as it turned out. Something else that came up best time to Mega Drive, and what I found out was that in the sprint race only really is a better option if you are going to have a race streak and quality streak in addition, because when I went to Mega Drive this time, he was basically guaranteed more points if he had a quality and race streak than he is if he wins the sprint race in the regular race.
Yes, for those of you who didn't watch the video, I looked at the hard stats. You are guaranteed more points and have a higher probability of a driver getting a race or quality streak than you are getting max points for a sprint race. I don't think that it's really worth Mega Driving somebody during sprint race weekends, unless, like you said, it lines up. Which, spoiler alert, the next race that'll have a sprint will be at Interlagos in Brazil. And unless COVID shuts that down, that'll be 5 races from now, which means that not only will Hamilton and Verstappen potentially get their power streak at the same time, that'll also be a sprint race. So it could be an additional 15 points of bonus, an additional 13 to 16 points of sprint race. You can make a big swing. It may not be wise to Mega Drive Verstappen and Hamilton at the next sprint race. Who knows? They're going to collide again? It seems like they collide whenever there's a sprint race. I see that smile, Paola. What are your thoughts? Do you think it's going to happen again?
Hopefully they've learned their lesson. It seems like the rivalry between them gets stronger and stronger every time something like this happens. We're seeing a more aggressive type of driving from Hamilton. He's not used to being behind anyone.
So in the past, Hamilton would have let the person by knowing that he could just pick him off later because he had a faster car. Right now, he's not that confident in his car that he could pass Verstappen if he let him by.
He and Norris were having really clean battles, and I think the reason why is because he's not fighting Norris for the championship. If he was fighting Norris for the championship, I think he would not have been nearly as passive attacking Norris. I think he would have actually tried to gun it past him a couple times. But it's going to show that McLaren, having the Mercedes engine and a better aero package, is really hard for the Mercedes to pass. Which now brings us to another tweet, a poll that I put out. I said, after 2 sprint race weekends, how do you feel or rate the sprint races? 1 to 4 stars. 45% says it's 2 stars. It needs to be better. What would you guys rate on a star scale of 1 to 4? 4 being amazing, 3 being pretty good, 2 being needs to be better, or 1 meh. We'll start with you, bro.
So I actually haven't watched either of the sprint races, so I don't have much of an opinion.
Well, I think you would then fall under meh, right? Because if it's not must-watch racing, I think that's the reason they introduced it, right?
It's not that I haven't wanted to watch them, I just haven't.
I like some aspects of it. What I don't like about it is it seems like the people who do better in the sprint race don't do as well in the regular race. I'm not sure exactly why, but that seems to be a trend.
Well, I think to balance it out, you're thinking probably about Verstappen, but Alonso did really good in the sprint race in Silverstone and then passed even more people during the normal race. We had both McLarens who passed, specifically Hamilton, in the sprint race, and they went on to finish 1-2 by passing Verstappen in the race. So I think there's evidences of cars that actually did pretty good over the sprint race weekend.
Why is it that they don't qualify better if they can have better race pace?
Okay, this is my Google spreadsheet. You can find the link in the description here. Under the results tab, you can see. Now, I don't have the sprint race quali. I just have quali to race. So over the course of sprint race and the race itself, Stroll gained 5 positions. Ocon gained 4. Alonso gained 5. Russell gained 6. Latifi gained 5. Kubica, who was subbing in for Raikkonen, gained 5 positions. Leclerc gained 4 positions. Perez gained 4 positions. Ricciardo gained 4 positions. So we had a lot of people who gained 4 or more positions over the course of the whole race weekend.
It does tend to punish slow starts. I've noticed that. Hamilton had a slow start on the sprint, and he went down into 5th place, but he got 4th because of Bottas. And then Verstappen had a slower start than Ricciardo, and you have more chances to get a bad start.
That's true. And Paola, what are your thoughts about the sprint race?
Out of 4 stars, I would probably give it a 2. I like that it creates a bit of uncertainty in terms of who's going to be at pole. Like, it makes it more exciting. But I think the race is a little bit, like, they're too long. I think 20 laps is too much because they usually tend to get settled 10, 15 laps in. Then after that, it's just silly mistakes that end up costing somebody the race or not being able to start the next day. And that's the sort of thing I don't like to see. For example, Gasly, who I think normally, he qualifies well, but he has something like what happened to him on Saturday. He clips Ricciardo and then he's out and then he DNFs. That's unfortunate, seeing somebody that is normally pretty consistent and that qualifies well, not really being able to race.
I agree with you. I think it should be like 5 laps. Imagine back with me when we were at Azerbaijan and they had that red flag and then the race was over with just a 2-lap race. That was really exciting. And I think having 5 laps is just great because you have 2 laps without DRS. You have 3 with DRS, but because it's so short, people aren't going to try to manage their tires. Everyone thinks, oh, it's 18 laps. You'll have some people on a different tire straight. Well, everyone just picks the same tires. And you have to be like 2 seconds faster than another car to actually pass them with DRS. So if you have it just 5 laps and everyone is so like lightweight that people could try a different tire or be much more aggressive knowing, oh, I just have to pass you this lap. And then if I stay ahead of you for 3 more laps, I've got it. Instead of just, like you said, settling in, getting these DRS trains. And then you have people saying, I have to actually really push it because then I want to get out of DRS before it opens at the end of the second lap. This now brings us to our last Twitter poll. I had 15 minutes before the teams would lock for quali on Friday. And I just put out this poll. I said, should I turbo Norris or turbo Gasly? Everybody was talking which one. And 5 of you came in and saved me by saying who you thought I should turbo. 60% or 3 of you said turbo Norris. And so I had to put after the race was over. Literally made my choice due to this poll. Thanks, guys. Sad for Gasly, but happy for Norris. So you guys helped save me. So thank you so much. Speaking of people that are making big differences, Kubica, the Polish driver, had to sub in for Raikkonen over these last 2 races because Raikkonen tested positive for COVID, had the 14 weeks of quarantine. After 2 races, Kubica has leapfrogged Mazepin in the standings. What in the world? That just goes to show how crazy it is. The Alfa Romeo and a great driver are outperforming the Haas. But that does bring us now to our driver and constructor standings. Paola, tell us how you feel about the constructors and the power McLaren now has over Ferrari after this race.
I think one of the biggest surprises of the weekend was McLaren going up to third on the constructor standings. They came in a little over 10 points behind Ferrari, but with Ricciardo getting P3 in the sprint race and then getting on podium, they walked away with 45 points. And now they have a solid 13.5 point lead. So I did not see that coming at all. We keep saying, oh, Ricciardo's back, but I think he's right in saying like he never left. He just needed the time to get used to that new style of driving, to get used to that new car. I'm happy to see there's more competition in the middle.
Bro, do you want to share with us some of those statistics about McLaren? First off, being the first team and only team this season to have a 1-2 finish.
Not only was this a good finish for McLaren, it's also been quite a while since McLaren has won a race. Jenson Button in 2012 in Brazil was the last time that McLaren has won. They had mentioned this at lap 18. What that means is in this race, by lap 18, because they led for basically 18 laps, that was more laps led than the last 9 years put together. The last time McLaren got a 1-2 was in Canada in 2010. Yeah, exciting stuff.
Rejection time. Bro, who do you think is going to come out on top?
As it currently stands, Verstappen is barely winning, but I really feel like that's largely due to some misfortunes on his part. Hamilton, I feel like we've seen what we're going to get from him. I feel like if Verstappen can just have some good luck for the rest of the season, I think this should be his for the taking.
I agree with him. I think that Verstappen seems more energetic. There's a chink out of Hamilton's invincible armor. He's showing that he's getting older and he has skills, but they're not like when he was younger.
Paola?
I think Lewis is a bit in his head with Russell coming in, and his head is elsewhere, and he's not as consistent and focused as he needs to be. So I think he's going to be making mistakes. And also, like we mentioned, he's not used to being behind other cars. So I think that's going to cause a lot of mistakes for him. I think for Verstappen, he has like that pressure of being consistent because his teammate Perez hasn't been, which brings me to my prediction, which I think Lewis Verstappen rivalry and them being worrying about each other is just going to allow clean room for Bottas to just come from behind, from the ashes. He has nothing to lose. He already knows he has a few races left with Mercedes. And I think he wants Mercedes to feel the sting of his absence. So I think he's going to come back really, really strong and be more aggressive than we've seen him in the past. And if not first, I think he could definitely get second.
Let's put this theory down, okay? So
Dominick's like, no, wrong.
tell me, bro.
Realize that Bottas is still 80 points down.
85 and a half points. And if you get 25 points a race for getting a race win, it would take him 3 race wins to get 75. So he would have to win 4 races in a row to be back in contention.
4 races in a row where neither Verstappen or Hamilton finished the race. 4.
If they keep fighting each other, who knows? Maybe in 4 races will be like Bottas and Norris are fighting for the championship. I've seen that on Reddit.
He would have to win those races too. He didn't even win this last race, so it would probably be more than 4 races.
I think it's a great thing to throw out there because whoop, 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 we saw Bottas smiling. We saw Bottas throwing shade at Hamilton saying, well, I promised the team I would get on the podium. I went from back to first. I even towed Hamilton every single quali session to get him up there at the front, and I still out-qualified the man. And then I got on the podium like I promised, and I got the team points. And man, he was just like showing in, like I was doing what I was supposed to do. I did what my end of the bargain was, and who knows? Maybe he will start pulling it through. I personally don't think.
Hold on. But if we're gonna say stuff like that, then I have a wild prediction too. Okay.
Okay.
Ready for this? All right. So I believe that Mick Schumacher is going to suddenly inherit all of the power of his father before him. And every single race, all the drivers except for Mazepin, who will somehow drive cleanly, are going to crash out every race. Mick Schumacher is going to take the championship this year because there's literally no competition.
Comparing my prediction to supernatural, magical.
He's like, there's a chance there's a higher chance this will happen than the things they're saying. Really?
I didn't say
mine actually has a chance.
I didn't say it was likely. I said it was possible.
You ever heard of something so statistically unlikely they basically just categorize it as impossible?
Okay, so here's something to take in consideration. We haven't gotten to the big docking point yet, which is the crash. But if the halo was not on that car and Hamilton suffered a spinal injury or a concussion because of that tire hitting his head like it did, imagine someone else having to race for Hamilton the rest of the season. Verstappen would pretty much have won the championship. It goes to show that in the yesteryear, where drivers could really get injured or die in the sport, that could be your last race. And I think it's great that we have this championship battle. But yes, the craziness, we can say. I think that there's only one track left that is Mercedes favored. When they were at Zandvoort, Mercedes could not touch Verstappen. And so I think Verstappen is going to take his engine penalty next race. He'll do damage limitation. And then that means the next 7 races, he has the advantage, like Dominick says, to try to stay out of trouble. Last podcast, didn't you say all Verstappen had to do was stay 25 meters away from a Mercedes car? Yeah, that's all he's got to do. Well, it's not his fault. It was his team pit stop. But hold on, we're getting ahead of ourselves. I think Verstappen could potentially win this out.
Well, Verstappen is obviously going to have to buckle down because if he starts screwing up, then Bottas will come out of nowhere and win the championship. So he's got to stay on top of his game.
You heard it here first.
Speaking of Bottas, he was such a great pick for fantasy because he was getting all those points, and because his starting grid position was 20th, he didn't take any negative points for losing positions. So he actually was able to gain maximum of 10 points in passing and getting all those points for being in third place. So that was a good haul, which is why having Verstappen for the next race will actually be good because of the crash. I know we keep hinting at it, but Verstappen was awarded a 3 grid place penalty. And so they're probably just going to have him change his engine, which will nullify that penalty's effect. And then what Perez was doing for Verstappen at Monza, which was towing him around, Verstappen will probably be towing Perez around Russia to get him as high as possible. And then Verstappen will hopefully pull back through the field. And so he won't lose as many points unless he gets in a crash, but hopefully he won't. Because Bottas was announced to go to Alfa Romeo because Kimi Räikkönen retired, Russell was asked to give the opportunity to have the seat at Mercedes. Alex Albon is now filling that seat at Williams, which means there's only one seat in the grid that has not been accounted for, and that is the second Alfa Romeo seat. Giovinazzi looked like he was really racing to get that seat and then yeeted off the track and crashed out again. Do you guys think Giovinazzi will keep the seat, or do you think they're going to put another driver in that seat? And if so, who do you think that could be?
I think that he's going to keep the seat. I think he's won the pride of Italy.
He hasn't really been making waves one way or another. I don't think he's done anything so egregious to get rid of him. I feel like he's been doing fine enough. So he hasn't gotten a contract yet, huh?
That's correct. And this is where I don't think he's going to get re-signed, because if he was getting re-signed, they should have announced it at the home Grand Prix. If he really, as an Italian, was going to race for your team and you had a special livery at Italy, wouldn't you have announced your driver at Italy? So that makes me think that they're waiting on something. He got P7 and then crashed out, which is an embarrassment in front of your home crowd. And so it is weird that he hasn't got his contract. What are you thinking, Paola?
Just hearing you say that, I tend to agree that, yeah, he's likely not going to stay. I have no idea who would take that seat.
Here's my theory. That seat that Giovinazzi is filling is technically Ferrari's seat. It was rumored last season that Ferrari wanted to put Mick Schumacher in that seat. But because Haas, as the other customer team, was in dire need of money, and if you watch Drive to Survive the last season, you'll see that they needed sponsors. And so they used Mick Schumacher as a way to appease Haas. And then Haas used Schumacher to get 1&1 as a telecommunications German company who required a German driver. What does Schumacher prove at staying at Haas next season? Like, what can he gain? Whereas, if they can get him to go over to Alfa Romeo, he's now racing alongside a race winner, Bottas. And then that could go to help him get to the next stage of improvement. You're now working alongside a driver who's won championships. So I could see Ferrari trying to push to allow Mick Schumacher to get to Alfa Romeo next season. I want to share with you a really cool thing that happened in our family this year. Bro, Dad, me started this podcast. It was a lot of fun. Paola joins us. And then my mom, who does not watch Formula One, she might think about it because Dad talks about it. She's visiting our aunt, her sister, in Italy. oh, you happen to be there when the Monza Grand Prix is happening? You should go. And so that was a great sisters going on a cool experience together. And here's a clip from her little vlog there at the track.
Yay, we're off! This is my sister Ninki, and hopefully we'll have a great day at Monza. What? Yeah. Over the bridge. Yeah, they're fast. My race reaction is I'm leaving now the stand. I was a little bit confused with the race. that Ricardo won because I thought Norris did. And of course it looks like Perez did not come in third, so I was disappointed with that too. Alrighty, thanks, bye.
And now it's time for that crazy drama that we've been alluding to and hinting at. The crash.
That's why you got me by surprise. It's like, am I looking at the right thing here?
Sorry.
Actually, I just remembered, I think exactly what I said was Verstappen is the slimiest, ugliest rat. I literally said that. And I was like, why would he do this?
So do you think he did it on purpose? What's your thoughts about that?
All I remember was like I froze. I had my mouth open and I just could not believe that he would put himself in that situation. It just seemed insane. Not to mention, he put Lewis in a very similar position early in the race, and Lewis did the smart thing and got it out of the way. Absolutely crazy that would happen.
Bro, what did you think when you saw, when you heard, when you witnessed carnage?
They had been talking about the 11-second pit stop from Verstappen earlier, and I was like, okay, of course, there went his race. They were like, oh yeah, Hamilton had a 4-second pit stop. Sure, it's a little bit slow, but no need to worry. They switch it, and I'm like, oh my goodness, Verstappen and Hamilton just crashed each other out. Well, I guess there's no change in the driver standings this week.
Yeah, because all Verstappen has to do for the rest of the season is finish above Hamilton, and Hamilton will never catch back up. And so, like you said, if they hadn't had the 11-second pit stop, he would have come out in front of Hamilton. We saw Perez was able to hold off Bottas for a long time, and so Verstappen with his driving style wouldn't have been easy for Hamilton to pass. I think Spain is the only time this whole season that Hamilton has passed Verstappen on track. Okay, Dad, your thoughts?
Wow. What happened? And to see one car on top of the other and one digging in, wow. I was so happy that no one got hurt. Seeing that tire rub on his helmet, it was important, and hearing him afterwards saying, yeah, it kind of pushed my head down and had a little issue with my shoulder. When they replayed it, they showed what he saw, which was a slight opening that he unfortunately went after because he wasn't ahead going into the first corner. Even though he saw that, he probably should have backed down. But I think we see the reverse of what happened to Hamilton in Silverstone. Hamilton believed that he could not get past Verstappen if he didn't do it right then. And now you see the same thing. Hamilton's coming out of the pit. He says, I got to get past him here, or else I might not get past him. I think it was that urgency, just like Hamilton had on him. Verstappen got punted off by Hamilton. He got 10 seconds. Verstappen caused a crash. He got 3-place penalty grid. They say it's based on what happened, not on the results. So I assume that they're being fair. When it's all said and done, it was really terrible for my fantasy team.
Yes. Verstappen, who's at the end of his outlap, hot tires, and he's blazing down the field. And remember, he's trying to catch Norris at this point, right? So Hamilton comes out of the pits, and Hamilton looks in his mirror. As soon as he sees Verstappen, he jinks to the left. Now, Hamilton would say that he was doing that to line up for the corner. But because he did that, as Verstappen was coming here, before the braking zone, it forced Verstappen 2 wheels off the track. So Verstappen is entering the braking zone. He says he's not alongside. His front tire is beyond Hamilton's rear tire, but he's slightly off the track, which means that Verstappen, like you said, he could have backed off, but why would you back off if 2 of the tires are not on the track? That's going to give you problems, right? So Verstappen holds it, which now means he's going through the corner wide. And now that he's alongside, he probably thought Hamilton would would give him the room. Now, I was watching Driver 61 on YouTube, and he pointed out that Hamilton, part of the problem was his fault in that he wasn't aggressive enough. Instead of going to the right, or like the FI said, evading action, if Hamilton had owned the corner, it would have forced Verstappen into the escape road. But because Hamilton pulled back right, that then opened the door for Verstappen to think that he could not brake and follow through into the second corner. For whatever reason, Hamilton backing out, opening the door, Verstappen thinking that he had enough room. And like I said, you can't quite see because of their angle. He got one tire on the sausage curb. The next is history. Hamilton squeezing Verstappen right before they go in the braking zone, force Verstappen to go wide and not brake. Then he has to come alongside to be able to make it stick so he doesn't go into the escape road. Hamilton leaves the door open. Verstappen is trying to make the corner. Now Hamilton starts coming back to the left. It pops sausage curb. And of course, like they said, they're going to penalize Verstappen. There's nothing Hamilton technically did wrong, but Hamilton invited Verstappen into a bad scenario where it was pretty much lose-lose unless Hamilton yeeted out of the corner and let him by. But no one's going to do that.
That's interesting that you say that, because that did cross my mind, is would have Verstappen been as aggressive if it wasn't Hamilton? And I don't think he would have. I think he would have waited until he was on a straight or in a better turn, but I don't think that he would have done what he did had it not been Hamilton on his right side.
Well, true. Like the day before, Bottas was in the lead. Verstappen never attacked him. That's because he knew Bottas was going to get a penalty. He's not my championship rival. Hamilton's behind me. I'll get pole position. So like you said, I think these two are being overly aggressive because there's 5 points between them and the championship right now. Now it's time for our heroes and zeros. Dominick, who's your hero?
So this week, I don't have a driver. I've got the Halo. This is the second year in a row that it's proven its worth. With Grosjean last year, probably thankful for it. Pretty sure Hamilton is thankful that we have it now. I'm just so happy that nothing happened to Hamilton, man. That could have turned out so bad. That would have just really brought down the atmosphere of the race. Good on the people who implemented that thing. I feel like it's already proven its worth.
And then, Dad, your hero.
Ricciardo started the race in a wonderful way, got ahead of Verstappen, led the way. Verstappen couldn't get around him easily, which is interesting. Both of the McLarens are holding up the two championships. And Norris was holding Hamilton up, and Ricciardo was holding Verstappen up. It was really cool. He won. I'm not sure what I think about his shoe thing, where champagne is shoe and you drink it and you have your other people drink it. And he wore these shoes in the race.
For all those of you who don't know, this year was not actually champagne. This year is Ferrari wine. And so, yes, in the past, usually champagne, which is French. This one, it's wine. But like you said, it's still alcohol that potentially kills some of the bacteria for the shoey.
But what I really liked about it was after he won, he talked to the audience in Italian. He got a big round of applause afterwards. His personality showed through. He really has a big personality, and I think he connected with the fans there.
Mom commented that because they were in Italy, all the announcements over the PA systems were in Italian. She's like, man, my Italian's a little rusty and I don't understand what's going on.
Apparently they looked, and at some point her sister said, oh, there's Norris is first place. And so when she saw the two McLarens, she thought, okay, Norris and then Ricciardo. And then Red Bull came by. And so she couldn't understand any of that because it was in Italian. And so she didn't realize that Ricciardo went and then Norris. And then even though Perez went third, he didn't get on the podium because he had the 5-second penalty, which she couldn't hear. She enjoyed the race, but she didn't follow it very well.
Paola, your hero.
My hero this week is Bottas. Quiet dignity about him. He did really great with the sprint. He got penalties starting from the back of the grid. I mean, he went all the way up to a podium. So I think this is the best we've seen Bottas this season. It was great to see him smiling, and it looks like he's really out to just enjoy the time that he has left with Mercedes.
My hero is Norris. He kept Hamilton behind 18 laps in the sprint race. He kept Hamilton behind for the first 18 laps of the regular race. And it wasn't until right before pit stops that Hamilton got past him again. I think Norris did a really good job blocking. This is the second time, like you're talking, Dad, about chink in the armor. Alonso blocked Hamilton really well at Hungaroring. Norris blocking Hamilton really well at this track. We're seeing drivers who are now finally being able to be ahead of Hamilton. And his car is not 2 seconds faster than everyone, so he can't just DRS past you on the straights.
So my 0 is going to be Stroll. He didn't actually do too much in the race, which isn't the problem, is that very early on in the race, he made contact with Vettel, which is already a bad thing, but it's your teammate. Vettel pretty much had a downward spiral for the rest of the race from that. You can't do that to your teammate.
True. He lost like 4 positions after that contact. And like you said, after that, then he had more and more problems. Dad, your 0.
The Red Bull pit crew, by making him have 11 seconds, and made Verstappen come in a awkward position and having to make that quick decision, which turned out to be a crash. And so I sure hope this was a one-off for the Red Bull pit crew, but it was a sad experience today.
Paola, your 0?
My 0 this week is Mazepin. I just think the mistake he made of running into his teammate is just unacceptable. To do that when you're already last on the grid, it's unacceptable to me.
Guess my 0 would be Gasly. I think Gasly's was just opening mistake. You brake a little late. You're going to have your wing clipped off. That pretty much ruined his whole weekend. It was unfortunate because I and a lot of people picked up Gasly because we thought he was going to be consistent. I think he'll rebound because he's been pretty good. For a fantasy team owner, it hurt. It really hurt.
All right, folks, it's time for It's in the Numbers. Last week, we had 3 different combos. We had a 20-19.770, 39-18.868. Third one was 70-19.202. And we had 2 people that were able to get that almost immediately. So shout out to Kesko Ryan and Tristan Campbell. So the correct answer was Hamilton. Those were his 3 pit stop times.
Speaking to who won, Kesko Ryan was so polite to have a spoiler alert. What he did was spoiler alert. He did space, so you had to show more before you saw the answer. That was a really cool idea. He posted 1 minute before Tristan did. And so shout out to both of you, but you guys were like real close.
So this week we have another 2 pairings for you. We got 18-0 and 0-3. Name the drivers. And of course, this comes from Monza race weekend, as it tends to do. So if you think you know the answer to this riddle and you are brave enough to post it into the comment section, go ahead and do so. Bonus points if you can tell us what exactly those numbers are. So good luck.
It's now time for our ORC Elite. This is the best possible team makeup that you could have if you had a budget of 100 million or less. I don't think anybody could have anticipated scoring 356 points this weekend. If you decided to turbo Ricciardo, you would have gotten over 100 points with just him. And if you went all in on getting Norris and McLaren and Leclerc and Russell, you would have dominated everybody. Here are the results of our one race challenge. Just to remind you, if you use a mega driver, we do not use the bonuses. We just use the base points. This week it didn't make a big difference because our 2 championship leaders that often are the ones getting mega driver took each other out. Congratulations to our first top step finish team. He mega drivered Hamilton and got 3 points. Of course, the base would be 1 point, but still scored 280 points with this lineup. He did all 3 McLarens, 22 points for Stroll, 13 points for Schumacher. So hats off to you, getting an amazing rank. If you would like to join our one race challenge coming up for Russia, I'll put the link in the description below. You can see it here. We already have 6 teams. Once we get 10, I can put our custom graphics. What I love absolutely of doing is making custom graphics. Just need 10 teams. And it is great to have everyone come on board because it's not a season-long league where you got to slog it out and try to get a few points in advantage over someone else. Here you could take big risks, see if your team's able to have good picks, and then you could end up on our leaderboard. We have Gia with his consistency getting on the podium is extending his lead at the top step of the leaderboard. Uso with his second podium appearance is now cracked the top 10. And it goes to show that you still have chances of getting on this leaderboard. It might be difficult to compete with some of the teams that have bigger budgets, but you still can get on this leaderboard and get your name immortalized. Do you think, Dad, you will get on the podium at least once more by the end of the season?
Absolutely.
Ooh, I thought you were going to say absolutely not. Okay, what do you think? What's your strategy to get back on that podium and get the title fight back on with Gia?
I'm going to work a little more on day trading, and I'm going to trust trends a little more and not rely on quantities that have established their past, because statistics doesn't mean future performance.
That's a good point, which is why going over to our rank tab, if you look on the left where it has 3 race averages, red shows that they are been downward trend, green shows that they have been in an upward trend. Like you're saying, Dad, it's important to say, how are they performing at this track? In free practice session 1 and free practice session 2, this is why I believe that it's important for me to continue making 3 statistical secrets. That helps people see things that aren't in the quote-unquote statistical trends. It's now time for our Meme Team Award. Speaking of those who did Mega Drivers this race, we want to give a shout out to you, Duke, because you're one of those few people that did a Mega Driver on Hamilton. Yeah, 3 good points. I thought it was bad when I Mega Drivered Verstappen at Silverstone, and I got barely any points, so I can feel a percentage of your pain. So Duke named his team MD ... F.
Yeah, unfortunately, I was part of that person who felt the pain of Mega Driving in this race.
And you, Paola, you said you're saving your Mega Driver. When are you thinking about using your Mega Driver?
I'm thinking of using it in Brazil, depending on qualifying streaks and race streaks. So we'll see. Right now, I'm not going to be using it for Russia.
You bring up a good point. Let me promo this to you guys. So there are a number of drivers that at Russia will get a quali streak opportunity. That's like 5 points. But because Hamilton and Verstappen crashed out this race, that means in 5 races, they'll be eligible for a race streak, which would be plus 10 points, which would also line up with the sprint race that'll be in Brazil, which would be a potential another 10 points or such. So I could see a lot of people wanting to Mega Drive at Brazil for Verstappen or Hamilton. And like you said, we'll have to see. If these guys crash before that, you'll keep delaying being able to Mega Drive, and sometimes you might have to just pull the trigger. It looks like Verstappen's going to win this race. Okay, just Mega Driver him and hopefully get your points back.
I'd be cautious about Mega Driving Verstappen at the next sprint race, because Hamilton is behind on championship points. There might be a little contact like there was in Silverstone.
But here we go now to our lineups. Now, for everyone at home, recognize that these are not necessarily the lineups that we will use for next race. We have 2 weeks before the next race. So these lineups are going to be our reaction to like day trading or what we hope to accomplish between this podcast and the next one. So we'll start off with you, Dominic. Tell us about your lineup.
So as you can see, not a whole lot of a difference made here, except that I switched out Alonso for Ricardo. This is not a reaction to Ricardo's win of the race. That is a short-minded thing to do. It's actually because Alonso's about to lose 0.1 million, so I decided to switch him out for somebody else just so that I don't lose that little bit of extra money. So this is probably not what my final team's going to look like, but this is, I guess, damage control at the moment.
This is something that if you want to look on our channel for how to day trade, that is one of the principles that you want to do. If a driver is about to lose 0.1 million, drop him and pick up a driver who you think will raise by a 0.1 million. And that way you have now saved your cap space. And because you have 3 subs, you just have to make sure that you aren't losing all your value picks, right? You're dropping the money picks to save your value, but then make sure you get drivers that are going to get you points. Now, of course, if it becomes too crazy, you could use your wild card. Dad, tell us about your team lineup.
You can already see that I brought in a Russell because the sentiment is in 91%. And I project that before next race, he's going to go ahead and go up by that 0.1 million, which is going to help me out. I'm tempted, depending on how the rest of my lineup does, is to go ahead and let Red Bull go by and pick up Bottas. I don't think this is going to be my final, potentially more day trading if the opportunity comes up.
And then Paola, your lineup.
I think this week's lineup ended up setting me up really well for Russia. Leclerc ended up being a really good idea. Hard to forget his crash last year, but he pulled through and pulled out a pretty good race and a good amount of points as a turbo driver. I'd probably switch over to Norris as a TD for next race, but I am thinking of taking out Schumacher and putting in Russell instead.
You might want to do that sooner than later, because if you put Russell in pretty quickly, you might get the advantage of his 0.1 million, that's probably going to happen pretty quickly.
Well, yeah, here's the problem that I have with my lineup, and I'll show it to you. My team 1 is my steady. I try not to make a lot of changes. At one point, it's 200 points ahead of the other one. These last 2 races, because of day trading, I actually was able to take advantage of that, and now it's within 100 points, or a little over that. Schumacher, I can't drop him and pick up Russell because I'm 0.1 million off. So if I had done a little bit better day trading last week, I wouldn't have lost. I don't think I ever did lose, but I could have gained an additional one, right? So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to drop Mick Schumacher, pick up Russell, and then drop Red Bull and pick up McLaren. So then that means I only have 1 sub left. And so then what am I going to do? I might have to use my wild card, or I could see how well McLaren does next race and be okay with keeping McLaren because Verstappen is going to probably take an engine penalty. I would have to just play it by ear if McLaren is a good option to keep. Some people might pick up Ferrari because Ferrari could potentially get a quality streak, and that's plus 5 points. But they are more expensive than McLaren at this time.
Like, I would have wanted to do some day trading with Gasly, but he's set up to get the quali streak. So that's the only reason I'm keeping him on there.
Yeah,
But
I've got Gasly on my team as well. I didn't realize that, but that's a good point. That's probably why his sentiment is so high still.
But if I can swing a 0.2 increase in budget through day trading, I would probably go McLaren. Well, put Norris and Ricciardo on my team.
We have to realize that Monza is a power circuit. Sochi at Russia is also a power circuit. So if McLaren was that fast on the straights in Monza, they're probably going to be just as fast at Russia. And so like you said, that could be an option as well. And there we have it. So glad you were able to join us for this amazing podcast. Thanks, bro, for joining us this evening. Thanks, Dad, for joining us. Thank you, Paola. And I've been your host, Jeanmark. We've been your knights in racing armor. And until next time, we'll see you on the pit wall.